And this is one of the things I find useful about Twitter, because I follow some very interesting people. And so Ann Applebaum, the Washington Post columnist, who's just awesome on Twitter, everyone should follow her. She just keeps hammering Trump with her own points and other stuff that she finds. And she just pointed out that, did anyone notice that Trump threatened a war with North Korea 2 days ago? It was in the Financial Times, and yet no one can talk about it because no one believes him, right? It's like we have a president whose speech has now become so denuded of truth value, right? Perceived truth value, that he can say, if China doesn't handle North Korea, we're going to, and no one even feels like they have to ask a follow-up question on that topic, because everyone assumes it's an empty bluff. I mean, just imagine, just step back into the previous presidency. If Obama had said, if China doesn't handle North Korea, we will, right? That would be top of the fold. This is all we're talking about today, right? This is it just comes out of a blizzard of inanity and craziness that he's going after Meryl Streep. He's lying about Obama wiretapping him. Now he's threatening war with North Korea, and nobody knows what to talk about. So it's like the consequence of this is we have a president who not only can he not be trusted to tell the truth, he can be trusted to lie whenever he thinks it suits his purpose. And now, so the state of mind that everyone's in, including the press, in listening to him is to take potentially the most serious things in the world not seriously, and the least serious things in the world, like Meryl Streep or what he thinks of her acting, that dominates a whole news cycle. It's very upside down. It seems to me to be quite new, as opposed to, lies are perennial, but I feel like we're in a very different space now with the consequences of misinformation.
We certainly are. Do you think that they're connected to what we were talking about before, where you said that people would rather be electrocuted than to be alone with their thoughts? That we have gotten to this weird place with our society, with our civilization, where we've made things so easy. We've made people so soft, so dependent upon technology. We've slotted out these paths, these predetermined patterns of behavior for people to follow, where they can just sort of plug into a philosophy, whether it's a right-wing one or a left-wing one, with very little room for personal thought at all. Very, very little room for objective reasoning. We sort of made it easy. We babied them.
I do think that it's imperative, if you want to be a good citizen, to have a varied media diet. You're not going to have a clear view of the world if all you're reading the New York Times.
Right.
I think nothing against the New York Times or Breitbart, but I think you need to read many things and follow many different sorts of people on Twitter, not just because you want to troll them, but because you actually want to listen to what they have to say and take it seriously.
Well, the New York Times really fucked up. Where they really fucked up is where they said that they're going to, after the election, they're going to rededicate themselves to reporting the truth. And what? Why did you say that? I wish I was there. I wish I was in the office.
Why? That just sends the wrong messages.
Well,
yes.
as if they weren't into the truth before. Right.
Well, it says they were biased.
Yeah.
They fucked up. Yeah. I mean, they had an idea.
The truth is they were biased. See,
yes. You're right.
The thing is, the enemy was so grotesque in this case that it was impossible to not have been biased. Seemed an abdication of responsibility. I feel it myself. It's like people. Everything I say against Trump from a Trump person sounds like mere partisan bias. I've got zero connection to the Democratic Party or to. It's like there's no partisan bias. 100% of what I want to say about Trump does not apply to some other Republican who is just stands for things that I don't. Policies I might not like. It's a completely unique circumstance, and so it's true that to read the New York Times for the longest time, it was reading like just the entire thing had become the opinion page on the Huffington Post or something.
Yeah, I just feel like at this stage of our society, there's real consequences to the infantilization, if that's actually a word, of human beings in our culture. We've made it very easy to just go to work and just get home and watch television and just not pay attention to anything and not read anything and not really think and then be manipulated. I mean, I think it's incredibly easy to manipulate people, especially people that are aware that they don't have a varied media diet, people that are aware that they don't have a real sense of the world. And it seems daunting to try to take into consideration, like, what is involved in foreign policy? What is involved in dealing with Russia? What is involved? How do you negotiate with North Korea? Fuck, it's too much.
You would never have predicted that someone this scandalous and inept and dishonest, and provably so he literally can't get through an hour of the day without something that would have been a scandal in some previous age of the earth coming out of his mouth. I think there's no predicting who could be president in the future. I mean, you need wealth and you need charisma on some level. You need to be able to get a tribe behind you, but I don't think you need any of what people thought you needed even a year ago.
Well, what he's done by circumventing the whole system and by being independently wealthy is really kind of...
But even that was a sham. I mean, what's amazing is that he is like, I don't know how much money he actually put into his campaign, but it's just not nearly what you would have, he really only had to pretend to be that wealthy. And it was incredible what happened.
The flip side of it is what he achieved with very little campaign funds and his wits.
It's incredible.
It's like him or not, you have to give him credit for an unbelievable victory that very few people saw coming.
It's a popularity contest. Isn't that part of the problem? You made a popular person president of a popularity contest. I mean, that's what it is. He won.
He was running against somebody who wasn't popular. Right. So I mean, let's put it in context. Yeah. And we was coming after 8 years of a Democratic president who was controversial in many ways, and it's always harder for somebody of the same party to run. So there are a lot of dynamics, larger impersonal dynamics that were working in his favor.
Yeah, it's just.
But when we just to get back to the argument about, like, are we in apocalyptic times or whatever, I guess, I mean, I don't know anything. But my instinct is, just as a country, we've seen times of much worse division. We had a civil war.
But it's telling that you have to go back there for a compelling example. I mean, I think this.
What about in the 60s?
Yeah,
we had people in the streets. We had the Weather Underground. We had, it was pretty tumultuous. We had MLK and RFK assassinated.
Yeah.
It was pretty divided time.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm worried about now is, I think he's truly unique, and I think the way we're becoming unmoored from kind of the ordinary truth testing in politics. I think is unique. I mean, the fact that we have a president who seems, because there's a whole feedback mechanism. I mean, Trump seems to get some of his information from InfoWars and from places like InfoWars.
Oh, he goes on it all the time.
But you don't think he pays a price for his popularity rating is not high.
Oh yeah, well, he's paying some price, but the question is it going to be enough? And what happens with the next terrorist attack, right? I mean, so the real fear is that if we have a Reichstag fire kind of moment, right, engineered by him or not. I mean, I'm not so paranoid as to think he's going to do it, but I just think it's inevitable something is going to happen. I mean, we've had 80 days, 100 days, whatever it's been of his presidency, where basically nothing has happened and it's been pure chaos, right? And the work of government's not getting done. The government's barely even staffed. And this has been a period of where nothing really has happened. But imagine a 9/11 size event, or something really goes off the rails with North Korea or China or Russia. It will be so, I mean, the pressure to normalize him as commander-in-chief will be much greater than it is now, and already everyone's feeling that pressure. but two, the ability to clamp down on civil liberties and just use the power of the presidency in a way that it would be very difficult for our society to recover from. I think it's just. I mean, I think it's a scary moment, and the people who are drawing analogies between him and the 30s in Germany. I think those analogies are misleading in ways, but again, you just don't know how strange things could get if with a big negative stimulus to the system. What I think we know is that we have someone in charge who is a malignantly selfish con man, right? I think that is an objective fact. That's not a partisan thing to say. He is, that's as obvious about him as his hair. And to have that much power in the hands of somebody who is whose ethical compass is that unreliable or reliably bad, in my view. And I wouldn't say this of Pence, who scares me for other reasons. I mean, he's a theocrat. I wouldn't say this of most Republicans who I might disagree with. But there's just something to put that much power in the hands of somebody who is so disconnected from facts and reasonable concern for the well-being of the rest of humanity and the future. It's an incredible moment, and I don't think we've ever had a president who you could look at and say that about so clearly. I mean, not even Nixon. Nixon, it was pathological in other ways, but Nixon was giving us the Clean Air Act, right? I mean, Nixon had some point of contact with terrestrial reality, which wasn't just about figuring out how to burnish his imaginary grandeur, So, yeah, I think we're one huge news story away from finding out how bad a president he could be, and I think that's, I think he could surprise even the people who are very pessimistic.
He could also rise to the occasion.
Yeah. I mean,
look at you being objective. That's the newsman in him. Yeah. See that?
Well, no. I mean,
I also like to,
I would be the first to give him or the system credit for that. I mean, it's not that if he starts doing something good, like let's say a massive infrastructure project, right, that includes building out good things, not coal jobs, but if
fixing bridges,
clean infrastructure, right?
Right.
If he starts doing that, that'd be fantastic, right? And it's possible he could start doing that for his own. His motives wouldn't even matter ultimately, as long as he was doing the right things. But his motives are so reliably self-involved that what we need is a system. Someone needs to be able to play him. This kind of narcissistic glockenspiel well enough to get him to do the things that would be good for the world. But I just don't see. There's just too much chaos in the system for that to be a reliable.
Well, like
game.
they try to keep him away from social media.
Yeah. Well, that's working out.
I mean, that's a big thing, don't they? They try to pull him away from it.
Yeah, but that's been impossible. No one can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's. Remember that crazy press conference that he had, like just a few weeks into being president?
That was unbelievable.
I got text messages from friends that are Republicans. They were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, but it's an interesting sort of Rorschach test, because there are millions of Americans who watched that press conference and found it delightful. They thought that he was pounding on the liberal media.
Yeah, when you read a transcript, of what actually comes out of his mouth, it is amazing. I mean, the poverty of the passages in terms of information, and I mean, it's just the fact that we have a president who speaks like this is. I could never have foreseen that in our lifetime this was going to happen. It's unimaginable to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, there are just indisputably
but
millions
that's
of
an
Americans who
elitist
find it
Ivy
refreshing.
League concern.
Did you see Bill Maher's thing about Anthony Weiner? That he thinks that Anthony Weiner should run against Trump?
I did see that, yeah.
We need our own crazy man.
Yeah.
Because Anthony Weiner, besides his obvious addictions to sexting with people, was a very powerful politician and a very good speaker, and he had a lot of very good quality. He was going after bankers, the same as Elliot Spitzer, right?
Yeah.
Elliot Spitzer did a lot of good things. He was going after the bankers. He was going after corruption, and
yeah. Well, I mean, but that's an example. I mean, there's a flag planted that shows us how far we have gone from the normal. I mean, Elliot Spitzer destroyed himself with one instance of hypocrisy. Right? One.
Well, it was pretty bad. He was
Trump level bad. I mean, there's just no. There's like
I don't know. I mean, we don't have.
Well, the hypocrisy was that
breaking
he was
the law in this way. I mean, he was with a prostitute.
Well, that's a stupid law.
okay,
the real problem was that he was going. He was going after. Prostitutes.
Johns and
He was
prostitutes.
going after Johns.
I know.
That was the real problem.
That's the hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy wasn't that he did something illegal where he paid someone for sex. That law seems to me to be so archaic and so ridiculous. You can pay someone to massage you. You can't pay someone to touch your genitals. It seems ridiculous.
Right.
But
I guess the other piece you have to put in play there is that there's some percentage of people working in the sex trade who are not doing it voluntarily, who are coerced to one or another degree.
Yes.
And that's a horror show.
And isn't part of the problem with that is that it's illegal. I mean, that's the big argument is that.
Yeah, well, yes, that there is that argument. And no, I agree with you that consenting adults should be able to do what they want to do, but the crucial variable there is consent.
Right.
And kids can't consent.
Agreed.
And,
yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
I just think that someone is going to have to be dynamic. They're going to have to engage people in a way that, I mean, they're going to have to deal with his attacks.
Or maybe what people will be thirsting for after 4 years is actually Bland.
Yeah, right. Maybe, right. Yeah.
I would do with Bland right now. That would be fantastic. Bland and actually super religious would be. I mean, my
Ted
enthusiasm
Cruz? You'd be happy for Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz is not Bland.
No.
But my enthusiasm for impeachment suggests that I'm happy with Pence, right? So if I could find the impeachment button, I would not hesitate to press it. And Pence, given his religious commitments, a few short years ago would have been among my worst nightmares. I mean, I would be talking about the rise of the Christian right and the danger of theocracy. And I mean, psychologically, he seems like a normal, predictable, solid American compared to what we have. It's just.
Isn't the other question like Trump's age? He's a 70-year-old man. I mean, people don't really live that much past 70. Especially people that are overweight and people that don't exercise.
He seems all too healthy to me.
He seems pretty healthy.
I mean, that campaign.
He does.
I can't believe. I mean, that's
his amount of energy
in his credit. Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing thing to be able to do.
How do you think he does that?
It's the most punishing thing in the world. I can't even imagine what his schedule was like.
He was having a good time. Seriously.
It did. It did.
And in that press conference we were talking about, that 77-minute press conference, he looked like he was having a blast.
Yeah.
He gets really energized.
Yeah, I mean it's got to be the most punishing beatdown ever if you're not designed for it. I mean, I can't imagine how tiring that campaign.
I mean, you get exhausted for 30 minutes of looking at your mentions.
Exactly. Yeah. It's no, you have to be wired differently, but he clearly is he's wired that way, and it's worked for him. But you need someone who's willing to submit to the punishment of running, and that's a rare person. Or it's not. And the problem is that kind of selects for things that you don't actually want in a president, or at least I wouldn't think you would want. I mean, it selects for a kind of narcissism and a sense that it really has to be you, right? It doesn't select for the. In a normal intellectual space, you're constantly aware of the ways in which you are not the best guy or gal to be doing the thing, right? Like you want to defer to experts and Trump is only I can fix it, right? And that worked. And so you need there's something of that creeps into the headspace of most politicians, it seems, and so scientific humility and just a kind of a sense of the limits of any one person's expertise is not necessarily the right piece of software to have running when it comes time to run for president.